The families of 34 deceased mine workers have asked the court to hold Ramaphosa liable for the deadly response of the state law enforcement agencies.
Police guns trained on 2 miners as they crawled through scrubland. It's the 16th of August 2012. These scenes were filmed in Marikana, South Africa by 2 policemen on the day that 34 miners were killed by police guns. They show the police have come heavily armed, backed by elite special task force officers for what looks like a final showdown with striking miners. Crucially, they show the events from the police's point of view. South African police have always maintained that they were acting in self-defense that day after coming under attack from miners bearing arms. These pictures, filmed by news agency journalists, were beamed around the world and have come to be the defining images of the massacre. For some time, they were the only images showing what happened that day. But they only tell part of the story. Most of the miners did not, in fact, die at this scene. So back to the police video. It's here, a few hundred meters away from the media, and crucially, out of sight of their cameras, where most of the miners actually died. The men had fled here after the initial shooting, seeking sanctuary. In one part of the footage, an officer from the tactical response team, made up of crack police marksmen, calls for restraint. There's a miner on the move nearby.
Wait, don't shoot him, don't shoot him!
But gunfire rings out. Moments later, the policeman moves over to where a man lies motionless. Just audible, an officer boasts how he took the man down. The young man was later identified as 26-year-old Tabile Mpumza. He was shot 12 times. They head into a cluster of rocks, known in Afrikaans as a koppie. It's since been dubbed the killing koppie because it's here that most of the miners died. As the policemen walk on, they talk about how the miner was finished off and boast about their prowess with weapons. Between the rocks, several of the miners lie dead. Survivors told us they fled here, hoping to take shelter.
There is some forensic evidence or some scene of crimes evidence which show that cartridges were found not far from the bodies of those people who died, but were found high up or a little higher up, which really indicate that police officers were standing on a rock and firing down into a gully where men were defenseless.
In among the rocks, in scene after scene, men, some severely injured, lie sprawled in the immediate aftermath of the shooting. What happened at the killing koppie is now the main focus of the Commission of Inquiry. Families of the dead have accused the police of destroying other video evidence as part of a cover-up. The police deny it, but their own video raises more disturbing questions about what happened on that day.
And today, the High Court made these observations. First, that the plaintiffs have not established how the president bore any legal duty to the tragedy. Second, the court made no finding that Ramaphosa was behind the killings. Third, the High Court said that there is no factual basis connecting the president, the government and senior police officers. And fourth, the plaintiffs say that since Ramaphosa was the non-executive director of the mining company, he owed a duty of care, but the court rejected this allegation. It is important to note that these proceedings were not a legal trial and no evidence was presented. The court was merely engaging in a legal debate.
Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa, who was Lonmin's non-executive director of the mine at the time, he was accused of essentially using his influence and proximity to power when he called for police reinforcements, which ultimately resulted in what has become known as the first state-sponsored massacre in a democratic South Africa. Now, my guest, Tumega Makwangana, who is a community leader and activist here in Marikana, unfortunately could not make it here to us tonight, but she has asked me to convey this particular message to the president, and it is as follows. Sir, when will you come to Marikana as promised? People are yearning for closure.
I know that people want closure. I also want closure. And it's a matter that I know that needs to be addressed. I need to be there myself, which I am going to do. When we finally go, we should have a situation where we are able to effectively put closure to this matter and put it to bed and heal the wounds. I know it will never be put to bed, but it will at least be healing the wounds. And that in our culture is important. That should never have happened. It's an incident that will take a long time to blot out of our memory, and maybe our memory should remain engaged with it so that an incident like that never happens again.
It is a fact that he doesn't deny that he received funding for his presidential campaign. He did not declare it in parliament. That's illegal. So we make the call and we reiterate, President Ramaphosa, reveal who funded you. Reveal their names, reveal also what do they stand to benefit. It is important that in the spirit of this particular amendment and legislative process to reiterate our call that President Ramaphosa must take the country into confidence about people, companies that funded his presidential campaign to become the president of the ANC. In the interest of access to information, we have the right as the South Africans to know who funded the CR17 campaign and what do they stand to benefit.
Emails published by News 24 have revealed individuals' approach to fund President Cyril Ramaphosa's ANC presidential campaign. The publication says these emails appear to suggest that President Ramaphosa knew about the funding activities. Now, this is pretty much contrary to his previous assertions that he was never told who funded his CR17 campaign.
The emails by News 24 seem to suggest Ramaphosa knew some of the people approached for funding. They show that the president was consulted by his campaign managers about plans to approach several donors, among them a Greek shipping tycoon with links to the arms deal. They also finger Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan as being central to raising funds for Ramaphosa. This email, seemingly written by one of the CR17 campaign managers to the president, confirming one of the donors. How exactly these emails were accessed is unknown.
This is the question which set tongues wagging.
Now, Mr. President, here I hold a proof of payment that was transferred to say R500,000 rands need to be transferred to a trust account called EFG2 on the 18th of October last year. This was allegedly put for your son, Andile Ramaphosa. Following on to that, Mr. President, I have a sworn affidavit from Piet Venter stating that he was asked by the CEO of Bosasa that he must make this transfer for Andile Ramaphosa.
Ramaphosa claimed he had set his son down about his business dealings to ascertain whether there was any corruption in them.
I have made sure that I get the information as much as I can, and he is running a clear and honest business as an advisory service. As he has been trained with his business science as a consultant. So I have had no idea or inkling whatsoever in what he has informed me that these monies were obtained illegally. And if it turns out, Mr. Maimane, I can assure you, if it turns out that there is any illegality and corruption in the way that he has dealt with this matter, I will be the first, absolutely first, to make sure that he becomes accountable. Even if it means, I can assure you, even if it means that I'm the one who will take him to the police station, that I will be able to do.
In a letter to the Speaker a week later, Ramaphosa corrected his statement to the House, saying the donation was towards his ANC presidential campaign. He added that he had felt the need to correct that to prevent any confusion amongst MPs. The Concord has today agreed that the question was based on wrong information. Misleading Parliament is a criminal offence. With this Concord judgment, the President has narrowly averted what could have been a serious dent on his political career.
On June 1st of this year, Arthur Fraser, the former head of the State Security Agency, dropped a bomb when he laid criminal charges against President Ramaphosa over an alleged burglary at his Phala Phala game farm in February 2020. Fraser alleged Ramaphosa's Limpopo farm was burgled of $4 million in cash by 2 foreign nationals. The $4 million was alleged to be stuffed in couches inside Ramaphosa's home. He went on to say that Ramaphosa's security tracked down the suspects, kidnapped them, paid them off for their silence, and concealed the event from police and the public. At first, Ramaphosa laughed off the allegations and spoke freely when addressing the event.
I'm a farmer. I'm in the cattle business and the game business. All this was money from proceeds from selling animals. I have never stolen money from anywhere. The amount involved is far less than what has been bandied in the press. Babang this morning bariki billion rand, Babang bariki $4 million and so forth. I want to say it's far less.
But soon he would withdraw and refuse to answer any questions.
Why would you store so much cash in foreign currency in your game farm?
We would like to leave this whole matter of the robbery to the due process.
How will this impact your efforts to get re-elected as ANC president?
That is a matter that needs to be discussed as part of the whole process.
What do you say to a South African who now has a president who is being accused of being a potential money launderer?
We did say that the due process also needs to be observed.
The pressure was not only mounting from the press. Opposition parties were demanding answers, some calling for him to step aside.
We don't want the president to address the budget on Thursday because the president must be at the police station explaining himself. Parliament is not a place of criminals.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
We are removing the wrong people. We are supposed to remove the kidnapper.
We are not scared. We're going to come for them. We are 44 members of parliament. There will be no rest for Cyril in this house.
This came to a head on August 30th when Parliament refused to take no comment for an answer.
I stand ready to give an explanation on this matter.
There is no law that permits him to avoid this question. So he must respond to the question about what happened in Phala Phala.
But you have got a question on the order paper that has been correctly put on the order paper that has not been answered. And that is the crux of the issue.
And all that needs to happen now, Speaker, instead of us allowing running commentary on this issue, put the question to the president and say, you said you are not willing to answer or not going to answer. You have to provide a response. Saying I'm not going to answer is not an answer.
After the issues in Parliament, the Speaker of the National Assembly appointed a separate independent panel to investigate whether Ramaphosa should face impeachment over Phala Phala. And on November 30th, the 5.3 million rand report was handed over at a press briefing. The report has stated that Ramaphosa does have some questions to answer and that there might have been wrongdoing on his part. This finding opens the door for impeachment proceedings against him. He is also expected to face tough questions within the ANC, where he is running for a second term as president.
An affidavit that the South African Revenue Service has shared with the DA, signed by its legal specialist Siyabonga Nkabinde, reveals that SARS has been unable to find any record that Sudanese businessman Hazim Mustafa declared the large sum of foreign currency he brought into the country in December 2019. Mustafa alleged that he cleared and declared $580,000 upon entering the country. It's also alleged that the businessman paid Cyril Ramaphosa, the president, for some buffalo on his Phala Phala farm in the same year. Steenhuisen filed a Promotion of Access to Information Act request with SARS, asking for a copy of the declaration form in December last year. This was after the Section 89 independent panel report found that Ramaphosa may have a prima facie case to answer concerning the undeclared theft of money in his Limpopo farm in 2020.